Hello, are you a pilot? Have you ever thought of becoming a pilot? Um, if you are, if you have thought about it, have you decided what type of approach you'd like to make? If you're a flight instructor, have you thought about your flight school and what type of operating procedure that they operate on? It can make a major impact. So my name is Justin Berggren. I have been a pilot since 2015. I got my Bachelor's of Science in Aviation, and I'm currently finishing my Master of Aeronautical Science. I originally got my private pilot license in Pullman, Washington at a Part 61 flight school, and then seeked the rest of my ratings at a Part 141 flight school, which was a Liberty University flight affiliate in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm currently a CFII at Fly-Right Aviation, which is a Part 61 flight school. I've been there almost a year, just about a year. Before the pandemic hit, I was a corporate pilot for a construction group flying a Cirrus SR-22. Let's see. Through the various roles in aviation, as well as roles before I began in the aviation industry, I realized that standardization can greatly affect safety. I grew up working for the Forest Service, and everything was standardized, and it really promoted safety quite well. And of course, with the government and the military, as well as with the FAA, standardization is key for success and safety. So through the implementation of the project, I've been able to serve others and promote ethical and moral decision-making to maintain safety in the aerospace industry. This all revolved around my research question, or my capstone question topic, which was, does standardization affect safety? I went into this believing that it absolutely did. I was under the impression that the standardization provided with a Part 141 flight school would provide greater pilots, safer, more efficient pilots when compared to the Part 61 flight school. I had experienced 61 and 141 training, and I believed that I myself had become a better pilot out of the 141 school than I had out of the 61. I believed implementing a standard operating procedure would allow the organization to follow a path with God and to pursue His values and while pursuing the dream of flight. I believed an SOP would help students achieve the correlation level of learning for more aspects of flight, and that it would increase the safety and maintain the safety standards for pilots, not only in the training environment, but as they went out and continued their aviation career. So of course there's military training to become a pilot. I've mostly focused on the civilian side, and particularly 14 Code Federal Regulations, CFR, Part 61 versus Part 141. So 61 is, as I mentioned, how I got my private pilot. It follows minimal structure to train the pilots. It's great for pilots that are working full-time and need to learn at their own pace, or people that are slow learners and need to learn at their own pace. It allows the students to pick their own flight instructor. This is great because, especially for private pilot and instrument and even commercial, you're spending hours upon hours with your flight instructor. For private pilot, it's at least 40 hours in the airplane and hopefully at least 40 on the ground. This is a substantial amount of time and money you're spending with this person. And so it's good to develop a relationship or rapport with them and ensure that your learning style goes along with their teaching style. This is something that you have a great choice of with the Part 61 flight school. Some drawbacks with 61 is that you may be required to get additional hours than if you were with 141 due to the lack of structure. It may not be suitable for those students that need the additional structure. But one great part of 61 training is that it's available at just about any flight school. So 141, or Part 114 CFR Part 141 training, on the other hand, provides a strict structure, a training curriculum, and standardized procedures that must be followed throughout the flight training program. It does not allow really any deviation from the SOP or the training curriculum. It's great for people that are full-time or career-oriented to becoming a pilot because it gives them typically a faster progression and more visualized goals as to where they're trying to go. So, depending on the circumstances, licenses may be accomplished in fewer hours. However, some students that are working, maybe they need to learn at their own pace. This isn't quite as suitable for them because it is such fast pace. Students do not have typically a choice of the instructor, and it's not always available at any local airport. So, the summarization of my research, I focused on values and knowledge as well as respect. So, ethical and moral values were some of the biggest factors for me throughout the research. Aeronautical decision making and is revolved around the ethical considerations and moral values of valuing people. Matthew 5:42 proclaims to give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. This is the New International Version, 2011. Quinn of 2017 explained how the Air Florida Flight 90 experienced a disaster after being exposed to icing conditions due to the informal procedures and deviation from the SOP. So Quinn basically, 2017, explained how the disaster could have been prevented had they followed a standardized operating procedure. Futrell of 1958, this one does date back a little ways, but he was a proponent on explaining how moral training and teaching scripture must be paired together in order to learn how to serve others, which I think goes hand in hand with our operation here. So, in addition to ethical and moral values, the value of knowledge and primacy became a major aspect. Proverbs 1:5 proclaims to let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. And this is, again, the New International Version of 2011. Aviation is ever-changing. It's dangerous and it's fast-paced, and so it demands proficiency and safety from the pilots, as well as any other operator that's involved with aviation. This is only obtained by continuously getting recurrent training. Klug et al. Of 2019 explained how work-related stress can significantly impact cognitive performance and elaborated how an SOP can mitigate these factors. This is important for aviation because, especially here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we have many work-related stress. We have environmental stress. Pilot or aviation in general have work-related stress, and we must learn how to mitigate these stresses so we can operate at peak performance. And finally, respect was a major one for me, treating others with respect. Yount and Charter of 2012 explained how Scripture is eternal, infallible revelation of God, and it guides Christians to seek what is right and just. It helps us interact with each other, how to treat each other with respect, and how to treat each other well, and how to serve others rather than your own needs. And this is pretty easy when you're following the path laid by the Lord. Christians and aviators alike should treat others how they'd like to be treated, and this extends to equipment as well. Many times in aviation, a pilot will get out of an airplane and hand the metaphorical keys over to the next pilot, or in our training environment, we do hand the keys over to the next pilot, and we try to give them a debrief on the condition of the aircraft. We are holding each other's lives in our hands, and therefore we trust each other, and we must trust ourselves with the equipment and trust each other with the equipment to treat it well and with respect. So Schmidt, 2021, explained that greater performance can be achieved with the implementation of a standardized operating procedure. So Paths to Training, Part 61, verse 141. Contradicting my original capstone question, Neck and Smith, 2013, found in an FAA study that the type of flight school training a student learns from did not affect their aviation safety record. Between 2003 and 2007, they polled general aviation pilots that had graduated from a Part 141 and Part 61 flight training, as well as how they achieved their check ride, and they found that there was not a significant difference in the safety standard outside of the training environment. However, the standardized operating procedure did help the organization achieve greater success to accomplish their specific operational goals. So for the implementation, I developed a standardized operating procedure. This was not a training curriculum. It was a SOP for Fly-Right Aviation, our Part 61 flight school, and I followed the structure of the ASA Part 141 curriculum. I'm dedicated to aeronautical safety. Working at the 61 flight school, I wanted to see students achieve greater lessons of learning, correlation level of learning, and I wanted to see greater safety. I wanted to see how the training could be implemented through emergency procedures and ensure that they were set up for the ultimate success. So first was the development and implementation stages. I studied the ASA Part 141 curriculum and requirements. I wrote the SOP. I expanded on the safety operational areas. I wrote standards for emergency preparedness procedures, and I collaborated with my mentor, Mr. Magna. I wrote policy to handle aircraft discrepancies. This was one of the most time-consuming because the aircraft in this ever-changing environment experiences many deficiencies that must be handled. The implementation, I was able to put it into effect. I met with students, I met with CFIs, and we went over how the SOP would be developed, would be implemented, and how it could be actually functional. The project influenced my capstone greatly because it supported the need for structure. In the few short weeks that it has actually been implemented, I have seen greater safety within the flight school. There's been greater standardization. Aircraft have been maintained better. Students have been more aware of what aircraft need to have in order to go fly. We teach them 91.205 and 91.213 to know what components an aircraft need and the process to go through when an aircraft isn't quite airworthy, but it still may be safe. The SOP has developed a very strict structure as to what students must do to go through before that plane can go online. And more importantly, when something goes, maybe not more importantly, but just as importantly, when something goes wrong in flight, something as simple as even maybe a directional gyro spinning or no longer working, how we write that up to ensure that the next pilot doesn't get stuck with that, figuring it out on the startup and taxi. That way they already know about the issue. So my reflection, I believe that implementing the SOP would allow the organization to follow the path of the Lord and His values pursuing the dream of flight. I believe that it has helped safety standards, and I believe that the longer I see this implementation continue, that it will actually ensure greater safety. Psalm 32:8 proclaims that I will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go. I will counsel you with my eye on you. And this is the King James Bible. Only with the guidance of the Lord can we achieve ultimate success. 1 Corinthians 14:40 proclaims that, but all things should be done decently in order, from the King James Bible as well. In aviation, this can only be achieved, I believe, through utilizing the standard operating procedure. Although Nett and Smith 2013, found that there is no statistical proof that an SOP creates safer pilots with greater safety awareness and a correlation level of learning, I believe in the coming weeks, coming months of my implementation, continued implementation, that this will be found. Mendonca et al. 2017 did explain that that safety is essential, is only achieved through a standardized operating procedure. And finally, Mr. Magna explained the importance and lives the importance of respecting the equipment. So, does the standardization affect safety? I believe it absolutely does. Standardization has greatly improved the safety with the flight school. Ethical and moral considerations have been promoted within the school, valuing knowledge, treating others with respect, following the procedures to maintain safety, and a biblical worldview. So, does your flight school operate with an SOP? If it doesn't, I highly suggest implementing one. Thank you for listening. Until next time.